Today we're joined by Dr. Kurt Schütte, PhD in biomechanics, CEO and co-founder of Runeasi, a company that's shaking up how we assess running and jumping in both clinical and athletic settings. After completing his PhD, Kurt saw a gap between the lab and the field, and a clear need for affordable, evidence-based biomechanics analysis that could be used in the real world. That realization became Runeasi. His mission? To empower clinicians and coaches to use data-driven insights to reduce injury risk and enhance performance, and to make this the standard within the next 3 years. Today, we'll explore what Runeasi is building, how it works, and how it's being used in practice, from 3D AI-powered running gait analysis to a new jump module that goes far beyond measuring jump height. Let's dive in. Hi Kurt, welcome to the pod.
Hey Kai, thanks so much for the warm introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to have you. I'm really interested in what you guys are doing and also how it works and to share that with our audience. So maybe can you take us a little bit back to the origin of Runeasi? Did some introduction and what problem were you trying to solve when you started the company?
Yeah, sure. I love to tell Runeasi's origin story, but yeah, I guess it started when, it started because we saw a massive gap. The research insights that we could gather in our biomechanics lab weren't making it into everyday clinical care, you could say. And we noticed that you can't see forces with the naked eye. And video alone doesn't tell you how a runner is loading, how they're responding to that load, or how they're compensating for that matter. And so, Runeasi was basically built to bring that lab-grade running load analysis into the hands of everyday physios, whether it's on the treadmill or outside.
Yeah, that's a great mission. And maybe a personal question. What motivated you to go from research to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I guess it's a multitude of things, and I think it's like accumulation of lots of little things that happen in your career or your journey. I think one realization happened was that I guess the people that I was surrounded by was very unique and complementary. And as you know, you'd spend hours and hours in the lab testing subjects, participants. You're doing, you're putting markers on, you're testing in the lab, you've got motion capture, you've got calibration, and you're just spending a lot of time with your colleagues, collecting data, processing data. And I think we're sort of looking at each other in the team and sort of realizing, hey, we kind of got a very special combination of some unique skills and maybe experience to pull off something that's more than just research. We can actually found something and develop something that can be used in the real world. And I think the combined domain expertise just got us really excited. I think, hey, we're kind of uniquely positioned to launch something that goes beyond academia. Academia in itself and science is fantastic, but putting it into the real world was like, okay, that was a realization for me. And I've always had like a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was a physio 15 years ago, after 6 months of interning, I was like, no, I'm going to go specialize in the niche of running. I'm going to do my own mobile clinic. I liked that, the self-starting kind of entrepreneurial thing of growing your own business, growing your own brand at the same time, and combination of factors, I would say.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Exactly. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, and you guys have a bold mission, and that is that every clinician and coach uses data-driven insights. And what do you think needs to change in our profession to make that vision a reality?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's a couple of things. There's obviously like societal reasons, and there's global reasons, and then there's just like how fast is the research moving in one direction. I remember a nice analogy that one of my professors once used was that, like when you're doing research and we want to improve, obviously, like the transfer to the clinic, the research is, you can visualize it like a metaphor, like expanding, your knowledge is an expanding area of the circle. which is great. So you're like, as you pour more research into it, finding insights, expanding the volume. But what the other side of the coin, or you could say the circumference of the circle, is more like, what are the unanswered questions? So from that perspective, you're like, yeah, we're pushing the science further, we're expanding the knowledge, but as that knowledge grows, so do the number of questions and areas that need to further research. And I think that that sometimes is like, well, something a lot to digest as a clinician. And then as the research expands, like, how do you keep up to date on things, and how do you know what's working? And then research in itself obviously is designed for statistical populations and getting group significance and probabilities that you're like, this intervention's worked or doesn't work. But when you spend many years in research, you also start, you process you clean your own data sets, and you see the individual responses, and then you start thinking, okay, great, we've got the significant effect of this intervention. All this biomechanical research is showing good effects. But we see, like, these participants not really responding. These other participants had a negative response, but they're the minority. So, but overall, it was great and significant. And then, if you compare that to in the clinic, you see, you got the one patient in front of you. The one patient is not 10 or 20 or 50 participants that you're trying to solve a problem for. So the N of one becomes the problem worth solving. And so, I think that's a big challenge in today's day and age, is to kind of draw the right conclusions based from research that relates or is relevant to the patient studying in front of you. And that's where I think actionable-based data and insights can really help in that regard, because you're really testing that person, the patient, client, athlete, however you want to say it, in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit familiar with your product, of course, and as you can see, we have a Runeasi device here in the background. I think at the end of the day, you guys are also trying to bridge the gap from research to practice, something that is like a mission of Physiotutors, to make what research discovers accessible for the clinician and the practice. And I think you guys are doing exactly that. I think there's some overlap.
Yeah, definitely. I see some overlap. And what we also see is, like, if you think of gait analysis per se, if you just focus in or zoom in on that element of clinical practice, what we believe in our mission is to kind of move beyond the so-called eyeballing diagnostics, which has become the status quo in the field. Not everyone has access to a university grade lab, so it makes sense, right? But we've developed our trained eye, but at the same time we're still missing things. And so I think part of bridging that gap and an essential part of practice is really to start connecting taking the workflows, but that still doesn't require a PhD to interpret, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's talk about the core of Runeasi. How does your AI-driven 3D gait analysis actually work? Maybe in simple terms.
In simple terms, I'll do my best. As I come from that biomechanical community, so I still sometimes have to kind of layman's terms, but I'll do my best. But we use what we call an IMU device, initial measurement unit device, that's attached to the sacrum, and which is close to the center of mass. Our algorithms break down every stride into the load on the body, the stability, and symmetry. These are the various metrics we have. Think of it like a force plate and a motion capture system merged into one, distilled into a sleek, like we say, a sleek sports belt that's worn on the patient or the runner, or you'll say, a biomechanics lab that's in the palm of your hands. Now that's obviously focusing on the hardware aspect, but of course the real innovation that we have is the data that comes from it, like I mentioned, the metrics, and then how do you perform your gait analysis, and what insights can you do and deliver, and recommendations can you give to your patient or a runner that transfers to exercise prescription in a personalized, data-driven way.
Okay. And what makes Runeasi's technology different from traditional lab-based motion capture or video analysis apps?
Yeah, I think, well, there's this kind of continuum, you can say, or this massive field, or how can I say, like on the high end, you have the biomechanics labs, the universities that are, the government funded, that it can pay for these really sophisticated labs. They're designed foremost for researchers, not really clinicians, although there are a few around the world that have access to this, so they're very lucky to. The minority, of course, I would say. Like I said, they're expensive. They're also slow because, yeah, in the name of science, you have to place markers and calibrate the labs and all that jazz. So that's on the one side. What we've done is, through our validation process, we compared ourselves to those gold standards. So that's where we like to bring the science base part of it, but we know that's not practical. So that's where you start seeing on the other end of the continuum, or the low end of the continuum, you have video, video or just eyeballing diagnostics, as I mentioned, is for tools in clinical use. But they're also prone to error because you have to position the camera in the right position, you have to get the right distance, and when you're in the pressure of a clinical scenario, it's difficult to replicate. It's also worth mentioning that there's recently been quite a surge in these what we call AI computer vision based apps. You might have seen them floating around. They're flooding the market for gait analysis and motion tracking. You can use you can use a smartphone, and there's algorithms that will spit out some nice joint angles and kinematics of, say, a person running past. But what physios need to be aware of is that these systems often lack these biomechanical validations, and many of the apps are kind of, how do I say, repackaged approximations, which is they're fun to play with, but it's difficult to deduce or refine your clinical reasoning with them. So we bridge the gap between the two of these types of things. We like to extract the best parts of what's practical and easy to use and affordable, and then also merge that or marry that with the science validation.
Okay. Yeah, one follow-up question. If you say that traditional lab-based motion capture systems are maybe the gold standard, how did you guys make sure that you are as close to the gold standard as possible?
Yeah, good question. So what we did was, in the lab itself, we recruited runners, and they came in, and what we did is we positioned our Runeasi sensor, or the IMU sensor that we have, on the sacrum, and we simultaneously recorded the kinematic data from the Vicon motion capture system, as well as the instrumented force plates in the treadmill. So we had the ground truth, or the gold standard, from the forces, and we had the ground truth from the motion capture, and we synchronized that. So we aligned the signals nicely with our acceleration data, our IMU data, and then we basically looked one-to-one. Do they correlate? What's the margin for error? What's acceptable? And in the beginning, we had wild errors. It's not like we got it right the first time.
Of course,
it was a very much iterative process and identifying. And one of the things that we kind of insights we unlocked was the actual how you attach the sensor is super important. The signals need to be, imagine it like a smooth sine wave rather than seeing a lot of noise. And we noticed that if there's not an appreciation to how you fix the sensor on, you just get to basically be measuring motion artifact, or how much your shorts are wobbling, which is really not really related to how the body is actually moving. So so in the beginning, our algorithms, were way off, and we refined them. We across the whole pipeline, from how you touch it on to how do you process the data, clean the data, and because it was a research setting, an academic setting, like there was no commercial pressure to get something right, or to sell something. It was really a discovery and a curiosity that got us to, like, how close can we get it? I mean, and now we're within a few percentage points, between 1% and 3%, you could say, from the gold standard on our key metrics, which is, for us, that's good enough for the practice. That's good to make meaningful conclusions.
Thank you. That's a perfect segue into your main key metrics, and you already mentioned that ideally your outcome is translated into exercise prescription. So can you maybe talk to us about those main metrics a clinician gets from the Gait testing, and how do these translate into clinical decision making?
Absolutely. So we focus on 3 core metrics. They're all, you could say, kinetic or force related. We do have an underbelly of traditional metrics that are great for contextual, but yeah, I'll get to that later, but I'll focus on the most important. The first is impact loading. And impact loading, how do we define it, is really, we're looking at the peak sacral acceleration that's hitting the pelvis or the hips, right? So how hard are you hitting the ground, basically? And not only that, but how fast is that impact shock traveling through the legs? So it's a combination of how hard and how fast. Now, what we've uncovered through working with physiotherapists, but in-house as well as our growing community, is how these different metrics have actually created like a fork in the road in terms of clinical reasoning and what type of exercises. So if you have a runner that's displaying really high values of impact, that's regarded as too high for that given speed or that environment they're in, we know that's got to do with a strength, more of a strength or a capacity deficit of the lower limb muscles to lower that impact. Then on the other hand, you have that impact duration, or I say like how quickly that impact is traveling through the legs, or kind of traveling up the kinetic chain. And that seems to be more related to what we call plyometric training. So those are familiar obviously with strength and conditioning principles, and you have different elements. And plyometric training, the reactivity side of things, that's where if you see a very short impact duration or a very quick impact being traveled up the kinetic chain, that's generally saying that, okay, there's plyometric training is needed. The patient or the runner or the athlete needs to work on slowing down those impacts from traveling up, and that can be done through that plyometric training. And then the third kind of core metric is what we call symmetry, and symmetry is used in all types of ways and defined in many different types of indexes or ratios. We have different ways of calculating symmetry, but the first overall way is that we merge all the metrics together, and we're comparing left versus right, left or right leg. Now, of course, depending on the patient in front of you, you might have what we call an overloading pattern, where they're really overloading the side where the surgery happened or the injury happened, or you might be seeing what we call a protective pattern, or we call like antalgic gait pattern, where the injured side tends to exhibit lower impact values. Sometimes we see this in a heavy rugby player that's come back from an ACL reconstruction, and they're offloading the leg that they had the injury on. So it really depends there from a symmetry perspective, is which side is the injured side, and then targeting the therapy obviously based on left versus right, or uninjured or injured, and just to help understand where the clinical reasoning process happens. So those are our three core metrics. What it does do is it really helps us spot what we say the dominant strategies or the dominant compensations. It helps to identify whether there's a load tolerance, and it can just guide whether this person maybe needs to modify things like their cadence, whether they need to shift to strength or plyometric training or stability training, because as I don't know if I mentioned, the third key metric is dynamic stability, and that is really got to do with the side to side hip control, energy leakage in the medial lateral direction. It's really not, if you see a high instability of your pelvis moving from left to right, it's really not helping you either from a performance perspective, from movement efficiency perspective. But we see often it pops up on one side. It's often got to do with poor hip control, lumbar pelvic control, and obviously that has a lot of application areas as well. So that would be a summary of the key metrics.
Okay, so I have a runner run with your device, and then I get those three main outcomes. How hard is it for me as a clinician to interpret these outcomes?
Not hard at all. So to give some reassurance, we built a system that is designed to support your reasoning, not to dictate it, should we say. We give more of guidelines of pathways, you could say, where you could be hinting towards. But the idea is not to start labeling runners with these, terms always like, overstriders or crossover gaits and things like those. Those are interesting, but we also see is that sometimes it backfires when you give a patient, you start labeling a patient as like, you're one of these type of, this is what's wrong with you. It's like shaming. We wanted to, we kind of see more from a positive aspect. What is your potential? This is your strong areas or links, and this is where your weakest link needs to be improved to help bring up your total running quality. There we simplify it a lot so that it's easy for any physiotherapist, to just pick it up, use it, and start making clinical reasoning. And again, I'll say, like in the beginning, we definitely didn't have that kind of say like that recommendation engine on our data. It was purely the metrics. Yeah. And our earliest adopters or innovators that believed in what the potential of the technology could do, they adopted it without having any, you could say, ability, or you could say we didn't provide them with any guidelines. Yeah. They could just run away with it. And one would be, for example, Dr. Bart Dingen, who could already see the patterns in the data, and through lots of these interviews and as our data accumulated, we could start figuring out how can we disseminate this to non-specialized physios that want to start specializing in sports or running. How can we help them broaden their skills, their experience, their knowledge to start offering services to support the running and the sports community?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And who is currently using Runeasi in daily practice, and for which patient types or scenarios is it most valuable? I mean, obviously runners, but in which scenarios?
Yeah, who's using Runeasi today? Mostly what we call catch-based physios, dual role coaches. So those that have a bit of a hybrid background in coaching as well, and then university physiotherapists as well that like to have one foot in the clinic but one foot in academia or research, and they apply it. And why do they use it? They like I said, they're personalizing exercise prescription, but they're also using it to foster more trust with their runners and their patients. They kind of want to bridge that gap between the strength side of things, or say like strength training, and the sports element, and that becomes more of a staple in their evaluations and not just a fancy add-on tech kind of thing.
And maybe as a side question, because my question was also about like which patient types is it? Would you say it's for like the top athletes as well, or is it just for patients? And another question that I have is, do you guys also see like really high scores in your main metrics with like top runners or elite runners compared to like the weekend warrior?
Yeah, good questions. So who's it for, or the end user or the patient? It started out being just for runners, and when I say runners, you have obviously different segments of runners. We first did to help the recreational runners, the ones that or maybe goal-oriented recreational runners, those that have signed up for an event, whether it be a 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. Most of them are often the ones that are stretching their ambitions a bit. So they've want to undertake their first half marathon or their first marathon. They've got their first training plan. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like their fitness is improving, but they're suddenly getting aches and pains. They're worried that they're not gonna make the start line of their marathon because they've now invested a lot of time and money into preparing for the event. So they want to make sure they can actually do the event and have the fun and the experience that they intended for in the first place. So we started off just focusing on runners, hence the name Runeasi. But as the capabilities expanded and the understanding of how the metrics and the patterns were evolving, we saw physios using it more and more into other populations, team sports, even multi-directional team sports, whether it be football, hockey, rugby, wherever there's that return to running transition, it's really important as a kind of a gateway for them to get to the multi-directional side of things. So it's often used in that mid-phase return to play, return to performance readiness continuum. And there you can, for patients that have ACL tears, especially, or hip issues, abductor issues, we see that. So it's mainly for the everyday athletes. But we are working, and there are a lot of physios that are working with Runeasi on the high end, the top athletes. And it's funny that you mentioned about the score, because we sometimes get what we call questions about why is my elite athlete not getting a score of 100%? Like when I watch them, they look like they're looking graceful, and they're looking like they're running perfectly. They're not complaining of anything. And it's surprising why their score is only 70. They should be in the high 90s. But we realize that biomechanical deficits is one puzzle piece that maybe is just not always where it should be for that particular athlete. Their demands are higher, therefore their tolerance needs to be higher too, and it just exposes maybe where they need to work on. And often you see like the impact is really good, like low impact. They're really efficient. They have good stability. But where they're lacking is in the asymmetry, because even the elite athletes get injured, right? So and they carry these compensation patterns. And what we're doing is we're measuring these compensation patterns, and especially in the asymmetries, and they show up. They're there, and that affects the score. So if they have a poor asymmetry, it tells the physio and the coach let's look further. Maybe where's this coming from? Is it a strength imbalance? Or is there something going on there? Are they're feeling, and most often or not, it's got to do with something that's manifesting. They're starting to get early warning signals and signs and symptoms that they're overloading, they've got overuse, and it's just it's a helpful tool to have in that preventative mindset, you could say.
Yeah, sounds super interesting, especially in top sports, indeed. Hey, and moving on, can you maybe walk us through what a typical test session looks like from setup to report?
Absolutely. One of our kind of values has a not from a company, but from the product values in itself, was that, hey, this is going to be plug and play. So we don't want us to interrupt your evaluation. We don't want you to spend ages in time, just setting up, and then by the time you've got everything ready, time's run out and your next patient's walking through the door. So if we walk you through the kind of workflows, a patient would walk in, they would have booked a session, a running gait analysis session. You get them to hop on the treadmill, you clip in the sports belt, you connect the device to your iPad, which is normally automatic after the first time. You hit play, record, they go for their run. You can do either just a single session, or you can do multiple speeds to help identify maybe which speed they need to improve on. And you can choose from 1 minute up till half an hour if you want to on the treadmill, depends. But you can get an analysis done in 1 minute. That'll already give you some clues as to which areas you need to work on with your runner. And right after that test, you can either during the test, you can give them a biofeedback session as well, to say like, hey, this is your weakest link, try and improve this through Gait training. Or you can say, hey, come sit next to me. You bring up the PDF report. You sit with print it up on the screen monitor. You sit next to them and you just guide them through the report, and you say, hey, like, this is your score. This is your strong links. This is your weakest link. We see that this, for example, your impact loading is your weakest link. There's a recommendation box there about why this is important. Answering the so what, you could say, to the athlete or patient, because educating the patient gets buy-in, a tremendous amount of buy-in. So we have included in the PDFs as much as much insights that can help the patient understand what they need to improve, but then also how they can improve it. And that just fosters that kind of that buy-in. If they can understand what they need to work on, then it's not to give them a shock factor, but it's to say, hey, like, I know now I have something I need to work on, and there's targeted exercises that I can do it on. So from that moment through the PDF, then or once the PDF is discussed, the physio will roll out a plan and say, hey, like, This is where we got to kind of, focus more in your rehabilitation. We either got to focus more on strength training, or actually, your impact loading is great, but your shock absorption is poor. We can go straight to the plyometric part of the continuum of exercise therapy, which often is something that is more of a kind of say like a hesitant thing to do first, especially because of the high demands of plyometric training.
Yeah.
But here you can give a bit more confidence because there's that data behind it that you can say, hey, well, this is the deficit. Your strength is great. Oh yeah, actually you've been doing your squats, like you've been doing everything fantastically. You're absorbing the load. Your load is low, but how you're absorbing is really poor. We no need to focus on that. So and then throughout the rehabilitation process, there's checkpoints for progression, and I think that's really, really helpful again for patient buy-in, because they have something to work towards, and they know they're going to get a recheck, and there's a milestone, and there's going to be a pre-post comparison, and so that gives them motivation. They come in, they do a retest. It fosters again a longer term relationship with the physio, but phasing from a rehab towards a preventative relationship.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I think you already answered 2 follow-up questions that I had. No, but I agree. I think, especially in a world where patients are sometimes hard to motivate to exercise, I think, especially with the score, I mean, people love that. I love that as a patient or as an athlete, like seeing a score that I want to improve, and I know why I'm doing it. And I have a couple of weeks and I'll have a reassessment. So I think that definitely works to create buy-in. I think it's pretty similar to, more extended, but a dynamometer, for example, where they have like a strength score for their quadriceps or for the leg extension. And then they do their program and they come in and you measure again. And I think that's indeed how you create buy-in. So I think in that regard, it's a great tool. I had one more question regarding running on a treadmill. And maybe also filming, or like having the chance to look at, or still like look at your athlete or patient. Or the other option that you guys offer with Runeasi is that you set someone up and you just have them run outside. What do you think are like the advantages, and where do you feel like having them run on a treadmill is better for you as a clinician to assess them?
Yeah, good question. The use case is really dependent again on what runner is in front of you, what patient's in front of you. If they're very acclimatized to treadmill and they're comfortable on a treadmill, then it's convenient, it's controlled setting, it's you're close by them, so you can even chat to them while they're running and doing the assessments. You can provide them that biofeedback training so that they can self-optimize or improve, or you can give them a cue. So there's definite benefits of doing it in the clinic, but then there's also definite benefits of doing outside. I think I can't remember the quote. I'll botch the quote out, but there was something, or it was Henry Ford or something like this. It said that basically, like, when it's out of sight, people will do completely different things, and you think about the white collar effect. When you have blood pressure, you often you see people that they see, oh, okay, I'm getting nervous, I'm getting measured, so my blood pressure goes up because the heart rate pushes it up. We see that's often the case on a treadmill, where someone is getting their running gait analysis done. They know that the physio is watching them, the coach is watching them. They suddenly have this very upright posture, and their chin's up, and they very kind of controlled running arms. But the moment the physio steps away, or they start just to drift off, their focus of attention is just like, oh yeah, I'm thinking, well, I've got to get groceries tonight or whatever. Then their gait completely changes. They're completely relaxed, and they kind of sink into their normal movement signature, and that's when you start seeing the compensation start to pop up. And then it going back to outdoors, is if, for example, you have a trail runner and they bring their trail shoes, it's like it's just not really feasible or not really realistic or representable to do it on the treadmill. So we just say, hey, just clip the belt on, go outside, do a loop, and come back in, and then we can look through the data together. The benefits of that is because we've recently developed integrations with the typical wearables or smartwatches. So you get the GPS data combined.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and if it depends on the case. So if you have someone with patellofemoral pain and you notice in the track that there's a downhill segment and suddenly the asymmetries like explode, it goes wildly asymmetrical when they're on the downhills, but it's quite symmetrical on the flats. Hey, like this seems to be a risk factor that's contributing to your injury, so you can get insights for that. Or you can ask them to go out and do multiple speeds, start at an easy pace and then go higher, incremental speeds, come back in. And then it could be someone with Achilles pain or Achilles tendinopathy, and you can see, okay, at the higher speeds, again, you're compensating more than the lower speeds. This gives us some things to work with. We know we need to work on your running gaits at that higher speed, because that seems like you're not coping or tolerating with those demands. So it really depends on the use case, who's sitting in front of you, but the capabilities are there to do it. The option is there to do it on the treadmill for quick test, or you can send them out. While you're working on another patient, you could even have your colleague or receptionist set up the belt and let them go out for a run, come back in again after half an hour. Or if they say, oh, I only get pain after 10 miles or say like 16 kilometers, let them do a long run. See where their quality just starts to deteriorate, and then more about how long and how far they can keep good quality before things really start to go bad.
That's what I found in practice. Indeed, that you have patients who do well, and after like so and so many kilometers, they break down. Indeed, and just to be clear for the listeners out there, you don't have to take your tablet with. You just push the button, or the device is connected. You push start, and they don't need a connection to the iPad, right? They just run, and then they're back, and the data is then like transferred to the iPad, basically.
Correct. And we also have a new mobile version as well that's designed for the runner. It's still in beta, so we have a few users at the moment that are finalizing, like helping give feedback on it, and it's used in some projects, some research projects. But it seems like it's going to really help the process a lot more. You'll be able to have all your runners kind of lend or borrow a Runeasi kit. They can also then take it back after their first session. Maybe I'm already jumping the gun here, but it's like where we're going to in the future. But allowing the runner to do their running gait assessments in situ, or in the ecological environment where they typically train, especially on their first or second or third runs back out there, allows you to get some real tangible insights, concrete insights that you just wouldn't have any idea about.
Hey, let's move on and talk about another topic, which is jump testing. So jump testing is really common in sports, but often it's limited. So what gap does Runeasi's jump module fill?
Yeah, sure. I guess it's similar to the running in the sense that you have the high end and the low end. On the high end, you have again like the force plates, either in the university or you have commercial force plates. I mean, the force plates, they offer comprehensive testing batteries. We see more and more physios adopting them as well, which is great. But we know that they're expensive and they're limited in the portability. So if you want to test a team, or you want to bring it on the field, or you want to test on the actual pitch, or the basketball court where the real game happens, you can't do that. It's on the force plate, and because of that limited portability, you're getting snapshots of progress. Whereas if you could get more on daily usage, that would be optimal. So that's where we were working on. On the low end of the spectrum, you have these lightweight mobile apps, again using 2D video, but are insanely time consuming. So they were very innovative for their time, but they allowed you to kind of film, say, a vertical jump. But if you wanted to do a repeated hop test, basically you have to tap each frame by frame by frame to get to the moment of takeoff or the moment of touchdown. And if you do that for 10 hops, and then you have to do it for the left leg and the right leg, you're 20 minutes down just tapping on it. So there we wanted to, I think, well, if you think about it from a physio's perspective, it's much more cheaper to go for a mobile app, all right? But you essentially exchanging money for time, and as a physio, time is your money. So it's like, okay, is it worthwhile to even invest in a cheap app? So you often see them saying, okay, well, let's go for the high-end thing. But we wanted to innovate a solution that brings the best selling points of both ends of the spectrum in the middle, and then also eliminates or reduces the worst aspects of each kind of technology or solution. And in the end, we developed our lightweight jump module that captures the gold standard accuracy, has specific protocols that are relevant for rehabilitation in runners and athletes, but it's also insanely quick to use. So it's the automatic processing. You can do repeated hops. You can get the data immediately. There's no manual thing, so it doesn't slow you down. That's where we saw the opportunity to innovate, and that's what we built essentially. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, interesting stuff. And what are your main metrics that you measure with the jumping module, and how do those metrics, what value do those metrics compare to just, or add to compared to just jump height?
Yeah, so I mean, jump height is, I remember when I was a student, a sports science student, 15 years ago, jump height was already being used, even though we would measure it by, putting chalk on the fingers. And if you ever did that, putting chalk on the fingers, jumping as high as you can, touching when you're at the apex of your jump, marking on the wall, and then writing it down. All right. I also remember us we were put into little mini research groups and said, okay, design an experiment around jump height. So we said, okay, we were learning at the time about recovery methods, and somehow managed to merge recovery and performance together, but in the wrong way, in the sense that we said, okay, what happens to your jumping performance after you do cryotherapy or you're in a cold bath? And obviously, everybody's performance dropped in their jumping high performance. But if you think about it, you can see that the performance dropped, but what you're missing is the how, or the how well, like what is the mechanism behind it? And I think that's still missing today. You'll have two athletes that can achieve the same jumping height, great performance, but you don't know how they achieved that jump height performance. Was it achieved? Obviously you think about the concentric power or force production, but how well are they landing, and how well are they recycling their energy from eccentric to concentric? How well are they stabilizing on that leg? Are they doing it in an efficient way that's also going to help them avoid an injury? So it's, often we make the trade-off between performance and injury, but can we measure something simultaneously where we have both performance and injury risk metrics that can guide thinking on both sides of the coin? So that's what we focused on, not just adding the 50th jump height tool available on the market or available to physiotherapists, but focusing on the quality metrics. Again, similar to what we have for running. How well are you stabilizing your pelvic control? From the moment you land in the eccentric phase, so that dynamic stability element. How well are you absorbing that impact? And then we have a metric called spring efficiency, which is how well are you aligning your impact peak with the moment that you're at your lowest point of the jump, right? So that we're doing that recoil, and we've seen in the data that those that are able to kind of slow down or delay that vertical impact peak are able to have a good recoil of the elastic use, reuse the energy much more efficiently, and so these are helpful parameters when thinking about player readiness, fatigue monitoring, different applications.
And we talked about force plates already, and they're seen as the gold standard. So how does Runeasi system match up in terms of accuracy and insight, especially for field-based settings?
Yeah. So again, back to our roots in science. So even though we developed the jumping module last year, which is, we're basically 4 years kind of out of the university environment, we have, two of our co-founders of Runeasi are still full-time professors at KU Leuven in Belgium. And we're committed to whatever new software application or module that we're developing. We're gonna go through the same scientific rigor process that got us here in the first place. Like that's true to our DNA. We're not gonna prematurely launch something. We're gonna really painstakingly at some points painstakingly make sure that we have something that we feel proud about and that the physiotherapists can trust in the clinic. So we went back to the lab, this time as an external party, but we had our co-founders there that were also a part of the university lab that helped us collect new data sets, specifically now on jumping. We had recently 15 athletes come in. They did repeated hops. They did counter movement jumps. We asked them to do small hops, big hops, so we get a good spectrum. We did it. We asked them to do it on the force plate, thousands samples per second. So it's really measuring high resolution. And again, we aligned the signals. We cut them up and we segmented them into the different jumps. We calculated the ground truth metrics of flight time, of ground contact time, reactive strength index, all these metrics as well. And then we compared them to what we could get from our IMU device on the sacrum. So we wanted to make sure that part of the innovation was that you don't need to wear an additional sensor. You keep it to its simplest form, one sensor on the sacrum. And then we did our algorithm development, and then we validated. And there, depending on the metric, we have different validation results. I mean, for example, for ground contact time, we're looking at, I think, up to a maximum of 18 milliseconds of difference of like a typical error of the estimate. We could explain 92% of the variance in the ground contact times. The mean bias was really small, much more than you would expect to see in an intervention. And the same for the jump height that we calculated, the flight time, and the reactive strength index as well. So there we felt like, okay, we feel confident going to the next phase of prototyping and development. We then released it to our early adopters, those that we've been working with, physiotherapists in the field. It's a very select group of experts that also have an affinity or an expertise in using jump analysis with force plates, or testing ACL patients or runners with jumping analysis. And they gave us our first round of feedback that was very positive. Things emerged there, like, okay, how we represent the data is important. The PDF reports are important. Benchmarking data is important, not only for runners, but benchmarks for runners, or say jumping athletes or field athletes need to be different. Recently, also ultimate frisbee athletes. We did so that's becoming a more and more professional sport. So creating these benchmarks that are population or sport specific were really important as well. Yeah.
Okay. And from all of the cases you've come across with the jumping app, is there any special case when it comes to return to sport testing that sticks out or that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe share one or two. I think recently there was quite an interesting case that involved a post-op hip patient. She looked ready on the surface, good strength, solid movement, but when we checked her Runeasi data, she had persistent asymmetry and elevated impact on her non-surgical side, so the healthy side. Classic overprotective loading compensation pattern, you could say. So we adjusted our plan a bit. We focused on shock absorption and stability exercises. Retested her 6 weeks later. Symmetry normalized. She returned stronger. We could say more confident. She liked to see the fact that she saw the progression, and the plot where you can see the things moving upwards, the quality scoring improving, and it was nice to get her feedback as well, her voice basically saying, this is really encouraging. It's nice to know that I'm on the right track, So that's maybe one case. I can share another one if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
I think we get a lot of ACL patients cases lately, so I'll share one of those. This time it was actually a runner that had an ACL. Got it weirdly enough on doing trail running. I mean, it's really rare rare, but it can happen.
It can happen. Yeah.
No, sorry, this was a he. He failed the single leg reactivity test. So what is a reactivity test? So in our jumping protocols or tests, we have explosivity, which is the typical squat jump and counter movement jump. But then we also have the reactivity tests, which is looking at this repeated hops. So not only the ability to jump high, but to do that while having short ground contact times. And so she failed that. She failed that test, you could say. We saw in a spring efficiency. So on the side where she had the ACL, her spring efficiency was really low. So that meaning she was not able to utilize the eccentric phase of energy to rebound. Her reactive strength index was much lower, meaning she wasn't reactive. Her ground contact times were really long. She couldn't generate as high compared to her healthy leg. And the funny thing here was that to the naked eye and everything, and to what was referred from her team physician and staff, I don't know, I keep on saying her, it's a he. it's a he. What was happening here was he really had to kind of delay his time to getting back to running on the trails, where he would have thought everything was fine. To the naked eye, it seemed okay, but the reactivity test showed that, there needs to be work done on that spring efficiency, shock absorption. And also retest came in, and working on that, specifically to plyometric exercises, helped build the reactivity up. And that was a good success story. So it's great to kind of get these. Every once in a while, we have our physiotherapists or our users kind of share a case with us, and they're saying this was really not what I expected. It's really nice to see how the data is supporting my thinking, and to see the patient again getting excited about it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and for all of the listeners out there, we'll put a link to the YouTube video in the transcript as well, because Andreas used your Runeasi tool about, I think, 2 years ago. Maybe 3 years ago already, in his preparation for a half marathon. And he developed some pains and aches during the preparation, and he also solved one or two issues with the Runeasi app. So that's an interesting case as well for the listeners out there. And Kurt, looking ahead, what's next for Runeasi? Are there any new features, integrations, or markets you're targeting?
Sure. I can give some hints towards where we're going. I think we're responding now to a lot of requests that come in from our existing user base. We first dedicated first and foremost towards them. We want to make sure that they're heard, and that we develop things for them there. But then what we also respond to what's happening globally, or just trends. And I think one trend that's worth mentioning is really how remote rehab is exploding. We see virtual technologies and remote services happening. We see some of our users are doing up to 75% of their patients are doing through virtual care, and some of them also doing coaching services. And so what we're seeing here is that they're adopting tools and principles that go often into the coach's realm. They're using maybe platforms like Training Peaks, for example. They're actually starting to monitor their runs. They're giving feedback, clinical feedback, in these kind of coaching environments. So what we often see is what we're starting to see is maybe in the past you would have the coach and the physio. If you were to visualize a Venn diagram, and they would be kind of separate, but what we're seeing is they're kind of overlapping more and more. And whereas in the past you would have shown a classic periodization plot or schedule to a physio, and they were like, whoa, this is this is not for me. What's going on here? It's totally confusing. They're now they're they're open to it because they're also seeing the potential of amplifying their ability to see patients outside the clinic. And so so there we want to, of course, make sure we can offer a solution that is really complementary to those needs. And like I said, we're developing this remote physio app where, you know, after you've had your first assessment, you can send a Runeasi belt with your patient in that critical phase of getting back on the road. You get some data from them, what's really happening there, and you can check in with them. You can build, you can extend your power, not your power, but you know what I mean, like your ability to oversee or to give some advice. The moment they step out of the practice, normally you would just have no eyes and ears and just like have faith that they're listening to what you're doing and that they're taking it easy. But now you'll have some good data that helps with adherence. I think that's one element that we're working on for the future. We're also working on building more clinician to clinician feedback loops, so helping other clinicians learn from the community. And so we're introducing, you know, which exercises work for this type of patient, and training the AI as well to start suggesting exercises as we see what works and what doesn't work. I think that's something really exciting. So that the more data that's being collected from our community, the more that we can learn from it and help out each other, right? So it's like a peer-to-peer thing. So we're building that. And so that's an exciting element, I would say.
Yeah. And you already mentioned the mobile app.
Yes.
I think you being able to use it on the mobile is going to be a huge advantage, I feel like.
Yeah. We also see it's not just from a a frictionless perspective. It's much easier because we all carry our mobile devices on us. But what a lot of the physios are using Runeasi is promoting their cash-based services and showcasing, you know, the success stories. And obviously, if it's on a mobile, you have instant access to kind of immediately share it on your Instagram profile to show and to share in your community to other runners, like, hey, like, this is what I'm doing with this runner or this athlete. You know, like these capabilities, these technologies exist today. This is how we're using them. You know, book your appointment to come in for a checkup, for a screening. So, yeah, obviously on an iPad or a tablet, that's more. It's a harder step to do. But now, having it on a remote is much quicker. Yeah.
Okay. If you could give one message to physios who are still hesitant about biomechanics techs, what would it be?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe you say one, but I maybe want to say two, if it's allowed.
Go ahead. That's all right.
I just want to say, like, you already see the movement. Yeah, you have a trained eye, but Runeasi allows you to really measure it and quantify it. This isn't replacing your expertise. It's amplifying it. If you treat runners and you don't know how they load, you're guessing. I'll put a full stop behind that sentence. And then the second thing is, I obviously come from South Africa with wild animals and stuff, but I always get reminded of the ostrich in the head in the sand. And it's not to say that all physios do this or try to stay away from technologies, but we see that there's if you're open to the technologies and you have your first experience with it, you have that aha moment and you're like, whoa, okay, this really is amplifying what I'm doing. We're seeing like there's a so-called technology evolution curve. I think it was Jeffrey Moore came up with this concept that as your new technology is released, you start with the innovators and the early adopters, and then there's this massive chasm or this gap between those innovators who just want to be the first to try it out, and then the mass majority that will buy out or use the technology because it's practical, it gives them added value, and it's something that becomes part of their everyday usage, like an EMR system or a plinth in your practice. We've crossed the chasm, and I think it's important for physios out there to know that the everyday physio out there is already adopting it. And don't fall behind. I'm not to put pressure, but at least do some research as to see what tools are out there. Runeasi is not the only puzzle piece out there. There's multiple types of tools depending on the patients and the scope and the caseload that you have. There's exciting new technologies that are developing so rapidly. And just, I think it's good to have a critical eye, look for the validation papers. Or, like if you have a sales call, make sure that all these boxes are ticked. Just so that was my second message. Just, I would say, just even if it's through ChatGPT or what tools and technologies exist out there for physiotherapists to keep me up to date and relevant. And just not become an obsolete physiotherapist. I think that's really important. That technology is really catching up with research and everyday clinical use. So
yeah, it's hard in the jungle of new technology and gadgets. I think you probably hate that word when Runeasi is labeled as a gadget. It's hard to distinguish like what is like real value and what is evidence based. And what is really just a gadget. And I think you guys are doing a great job, like working evidence-based, like really translating research into practice and also making it easy to use. I think that's really important. Hey, and the last thing, because we're coming towards the end of the podcast, that I ask every patient is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to add to the pod or that you would like to discuss?
Not off the top of my head. So I just use the opportunity to thank you. Thank you for the time to have this conversation. Really enjoyed also the partnership, the collaboration with you, Kai, and Andreas and Physiotutors. I think you're doing a fantastic job disseminating research and helping physiotherapists become the best physiotherapists that they can be. And the fact that you're engaging with companies like Runeasi means that you're open-minded and you see the holistic view of how we can help the community grow. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the compliment, Kurt, and likewise. And at last, where can people get their hands on a Runeasi device if they're interested? We like to invest some time up front to kind of educate or inform you on how to do it. So how we typically do it, if you're a cash-based physio treating runners, or you like to treat runners or athletes or offer services like that with Runeasi, you could book a demo via our website. It's a quick form. You select a time slot. In the demo, you'll learn about the growth opportunities for your clinic. You'll learn about how you can save time using running gait analysis and jumping analysis. What does Runeasi look like? How does it work? How does it fit your needs as a practice? How do you get education and training? Because we have an online certification course to use Runeasi effectively and bring you up to speed. And then, of course, plans, prices, conditions, all that stuff are discussed to make sure that it matches your, as a physio's needs. So book a demo, I would say. That would be the call to action if you're interested. It's a no pressure demo, so it's just about having a conversation and seeing if it's the right match. So All right. Yeah, we'll add a link to this in the description as well, and in the transcript for sure as well. All right, Kurt, thank you so much for your time and for your insights, and it was a pleasure to have you on the pod.
Likewise.
Yeah. And to everyone listening out there, thanks a lot for tuning in. And as always, to listen to this and other episodes in your own language, including German, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Dutch, download our new and free Physiotutors app. It's not that new. It's been around for 1.5 years, but still developing on a monthly basis. And additionally, you can access the transcript and infographic and find more useful physio content. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and also consider leaving a review if you really enjoyed it. And with this being said, this was Kai for Physiotutors, and I'll talk to you in another episode. Bye.